Kuntz, Senator Lindsay as well on board. You guys can jump in, just unmute your mic anytime you want if you got questions for Rep Click or Precia or comments or otherwise. By all means, jump in there if you guys have anything. And obviously, Senator Tice, too. Obviously, you've got a lot about this, too, which I respect so much from the Senate side. I'm grateful for you being here.
My whole thing is in terms of endgame. Why are we allowing these practices for anyone? Why would we stop this for anyone under 18, but not apply this for anyone over 18? It's harmful across the board, and I think that's something that we need to take into consideration in terms of the end game.
Uh, Rep Shriver, that's very smart thought there. And I think sometimes what we know legislatively is we have to take sometimes small bites. And I think the thing that we can say is for minors is that they are not capable of providing informed consent. We already regulate what minors can do, but they cannot do. They cannot sign contracts. They cannot buy cigarettes. They cannot consume alcohol. They can't get a tattoo without their parents. We already have some rules regarding that. For minors, the prefrontal cortex is not yet developed. And in fact, that doesn't really develop to the age of 24. So I think there is something to be said for adults being able to weigh the pros and the cons. One of the things the governor did here, he made several mistakes, but one of the things he did do correctly is he actually put back in a couple of things that I had to negotiate out, which one was getting the data. There is no requirements to report the data. I had that in there. It got negotiated out. He actually put that back in, which was a good thing. And then the other thing was, the Planned Parenthoods, they pass out, hormones like candy. And so he's put a stop to that. And that's where a lot of the adults will go. There's also places like Euphoria and Plume where you can get your letters and you can get your hormones online through an app. Those are some things that we need to, at least slow down the game. Most people, if they take their time, they won't do this. We know that puberty is the natural cure for this. 85 to 95% of kids who genuinely have gender dysphoria will desist after they go through puberty. But when you put them on puberty blockers, 98% of them will persist and they'll go on to the opposite sex hormones and to the dangerous things. So that is not a neutral intervention. It is not a pause button like they say. You are actually affecting the child's mind when you do that, not to mention all the complications that Precia has gone through and that she's mentioned. Let me add this in too. I got this from Leor Sapir, someone you ought to follow from the Manhattan Institute. And the arguments that they're going to come at you with are going to be based on eminence, not evidence. Eminence, not evidence. And so that means because we say so, not because it is so. So they're going to quote to you every organization that supports it, the AFA, the APA, all these different groups, all these different medical associations who say gender affirming care is good. You say, that's great. Where's the evidence? Where's their science? And they don't have it. They don't have it whatsoever. They can't give you any long-term studies of high quality because they don't exist. And the ones that do exist support what we say. And so you have to remind them, well, because you said so is not good enough. They block, the APA blocked the pediatricians who had a call to restudy this and to take this to the science and to do a deeper analysis. They blocked that motion. They wouldn't accept it because they don't want to know. They just want to tell you what they think. It is very political in the medical world. Never forget that the guy who invented the lobotomy won a Nobel Prize for it.
Well, and when it comes to consenting, essentially consenting to mutilation, consenting to self-harm, consenting to killing yourself, there's a lot of people, and this, no, not a lot, but there's a few extreme people that want adults to be able to consent to killing themselves legally, like they can do in Canada. And so when it comes to adults, I'm not saying anything in the way of dismissing what you're saying about children and puberty blockers. That's all definitely very valid and necessary. I'm just saying, moreover, in addition to that, we have to be looking at the end game simultaneously, maybe even using that as a way to move the
Right.
window and to say, hey, this isn't just wrong for 0 to 18. This is wrong for
Yeah.
everyone, and we should not be allowing this to happen.
So
Well, I think
one more response to that. I would first of all, my
Sorry.
wife used to work at Beaumont Hospital in Royal Oak, where Dr. Jack Kevorkian was on staff. So I'm very familiar with all of that. But the Reuters asked me one time after they said, "Do you feel bad because all of these states who are now blocking this procedure for children, they're having to close down their gender clinics, and that means the adults can't get these procedures either?" I said, "I don't feel bad at all. If they're trying to fund this off of the children, no, I'm actually pretty happy about it." I don't think they ever printed what I said, but sometimes we just have to look at taking the one bite at a time, doing it incrementally. The opposition's pretty good about doing that, and it gets them where they want to go. And when you put everything into one pot, it's going to be harder for you to get any legislation across the finish line. So take off a bite-sized portion of it, understand that it is going to have future consequences along the way. And, we even had parts of this bill that talked about what could happen in schools and how the schools couldn't counsel, they couldn't, do a social transition with your children without you knowing about it. They couldn't conceal your child's secret gender identity from the parents. And we were getting the guidance counselors from the schools and the social workers from the schools coming in and protesting. But we ended up with another bill. There's a parental bill of rights. And so they were already protesting that. So we just took that portion out of the SAFE Act and put it in that other bill so we could minimize the opposition that we had on this bill and just move them somewhere else. So sometimes, the Bible teaches us to be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. So figure out what's going to get your foot in the door, figure out what you can get past and go for what you can get past. And once you get that past, then go for the next bite.
I'd say
Prisha, what is it that you wanted to say?
I did want to say that I've kind of been waiting for a state or a representative or anyone to kind of be brave enough to address that. And I just wanted to throw out that this is the angle I would go about it. So first of all, I agree with both and everyone. It is easier to handle the kids because of what we understand about consent. I think pretty much all of us hopefully can agree that children can't consent. However, I also think that people in grave mental distress or who are extremely mentally ill also can't consent. On top of that, telling a suicidal person either take this experimental treatment or die by your own hands, that's unethical and that's not ethically obtained consent. And then even if all of that is out of the way, they're not a child and they're a mentally well adult, no one can consent to a lie. Most of these doctors are straight up lying about the effects and saying it'll magically cure every bad feeling you've ever had and that you can actually change sex. But even the doctors who aren't straight up lying just don't know, like I mentioned before, and everyone has said, because we don't know.
Yeah, and to kind of build on that too, I feel like it resolves itself is that if we have policy, health policy of do no harm and uphold that, and then we allow the data, as Rep Click mentioned, around this to be seen and then not censored, that's what our role needs to be doing. I think a lot of these issues would resolve themselves because none of that's being upheld. The role of government is not, it's being completely bought and sold by big pharma, and it's being censored by big tech, which is another aspect for us to act on. So I feel like it would resolve itself with the adults down the road in the aspect of upholding the policy of do no harm. Senator Lindsay, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I'll just start with thanks to everybody. Representative Paquette for putting this together. Prisha, incredible testimony. I'll try to be quick because I think the most valuable thing people can do is hear from people like you. But I just wanted to make one observation that ties back in with, Representative Click. I like the spirit of suggesting that when you were responding to Representative Shriver that it's one small step at a time. If you guys think that what you did in Ohio is a small step, that is very encouraging because to me it looks like you climbed a mountain and God bless. But the observation I wanted to make tied into something else you said when you brought up the schools is that, we're in a state where we've got to play a lot more defense. Democrats have had control. They've been pushing on this. The challenge is, and I would encourage everybody to think about if they aren't already, almost every area of legislation has an angle on this, and it's a shame, but we basically have to, I think, right now, put almost every piece of legislation through the lens of saying, how are they trying to use this to separate children from their parents so that they can do these things that they want to do? And what I mean is that, whether it's school-based health clinics and trying to find ways to, coach kids in that space. I had constituents the other day that were talking about the exploitation just regular doctors' offices are using to try to use this excuse of the age 12 HIPAA rules that between 12 and majority or emancipation, they use the excuse of trying to say that we're trying to get kids to be more responsible for their own decisions about health. So can we see them privately? It's across the board, and we've seen the push here in Michigan where the number of pieces of legislation that touch on this topic, it just keeps growing and growing. Senator Entice and I were just talking the other day about how we have what should a piece of legislation that should have nothing to do with this that we're dealing with right now, that is dealing with homeless and runaway youth. But we have to put it through the lens of they're trying to extend the amount of time that these children can be away without parental notification and can go into these centers. And then we have to hold it up against what's actually happening in societies, these centers that are trying to exploit children, which is a shame because they're supposed to just be there to help people if they're in a dire circumstance, especially on the homeless side. So my big point was just that it's so comprehensive across the board, and we've really got to do our duty to keep an eye out for this on all fronts. But thanks again for hosting this.
I would respond and remind you that everything they say is a lie. Literally everything they say on the other side. And so they try to frame this as parental rights. Fortunately, I was able to uncover some webinars that the Cincinnati Children's Hospital was doing where they actually had a plan to get the kids into counseling, gender counseling, without telling the parents. They were circumventing the parents. They literally would tell the parents they were recommending the child for counseling for anxiety and depression while it was really for gender dysphoria. And we found those videos. I mean, we found two webinars. We were able to get those out. Those actually made, we held back on those a little bit until we needed them, but we got those out actually into the national media after the veto, and that put a lot of pressure on as well. But you have to understand the hospitals are lying to the parents, and we are the ones who are advocating for the parents, not the associations, not the hospitals. They are manipulating the parents with this line of, do you want a living son or a dead daughter? And we have to call them out on that. We have to call them out on that faithfully. And I know your political situation is a little bit different in Michigan. I think it's tied, if I understand right now. My good friend Tim Schmink was telling me that. Some of you may know Tim with the Michigan Association of Christian Schools. But the reality is you have to shame the people who don't want to support you. You get the majority of people, Republicans and Democrats, are going to be with you on this, and you shame them. And if that means that they don't get their seats back and you get more Republicans, or you get some Democrats who are willing to take on this issue, you have to put it out there and let the people put the pressure. Ultimately, it was the people that put the pressure on our state representatives, on our senators. It wasn't me. The Bible says God uses the foolish things of this world to confound the wise. And I know that's true because it wasn't me, but it was God who did this in me. But he did it because I was willing to go and do it and to fight for it and to take a stand. And that's just the way you have to be. You have to take a stand when it's not popular. And by the time it is, it wasn't popular when I started it. People kind of looked at me crossways like, what are you talking about, Gary? But by the end, it's like, Gary, thank you. You did a great job. And so you have to be able to take it on when it's not popular, when it's not popular in your caucus, when it's not popular in your legislature, and when the people in the community don't know. But I will tell you, we started with not a lot of assets, but by the time we were done, I didn't know Prisha when we started this, but boy, when Prisha came in, she was a rock star. I didn't know Chloe when I started this. We have a trans individual that is still trans. Help me, Prisha. I'm having the brain freeze from Indiana. Karina Khan, who is a trans individual who stands with us, wrote in the Washington Journal an article that said, what I wish I knew when I had sex reassignment surgery at the age of 19. and Karina has been here several times to testify, to be in the press conferences and so forth. And again, one of the things that I did is, and I'm a pastor, but I asked all my pastor friends and all the Christian groups, most of the Christian groups, I said, I want you guys to kind of take a half step back, because I don't want this to be a religious issue. I want the victims of this to be the ones to speak up. And that's who spoke up, was the victims, like our friend here, D-Trans Squad. I love that line that you use, that model that you use for your hashtag and for your line on there, Prisha. But
Rep Click, can I, Tom Kuntz here, can I ask a question?
Please, I'm sorry.
I guess I just did. Can I ask another question? What I apologize. What was the timeline from when you started? And you're right, Michigan is certainly different than Ohio right now of our political makeup. Was this a 2-year fight? Was this a 5-year fight?
So the fight started before I got there. They had a different version of the bill. They called it the Protect Vulnerable Children Act or something like that before I got there. It didn't go anywhere. We also, by the way, had Save Women's Sports, and another legislator was working on that before I got there. We rolled both into one. When I got there, it was probably in the spring of 21 when I started on this, and I took a lot of time to study and know what I was talking about before I ever introduced the bill. I didn't want to introduce it and not have my facts together, so I took a lot of time studying it. The people who were asking me to carry it were getting worried that I wasn't going to do it because I was taking so much time to make sure I was prepared. We dropped the bill in October of 2021, and then we took it through that GA, and then I dropped it again, a stronger version, in February of this year, and got it done. So it was almost a 3-year ordeal to get it done.
Senator Tice, looks like you have a question.
Thank you. No, I've got a few different comments. I want to start with my degree is in biology and chemistry, so this is kind of where I live. And so as far as whether or not you can define a woman,
you can qualify for the Supreme Court.
A biologist can define a woman, and it's not hard. And one of the comments here was about detransition. Sometimes you can't detransition. Sometimes you've gone so far that it is physically impossible for you to continue doing that. So you are always going to be a medical patient for the rest of your life. Whether or not it is consistent with your chromosomes is part of the question, right? How far have you gone? But I wanted to say that within Michigan, we've done a lot to harm our children who are in this space. We did an anti-conversion therapy, which effectively said, and this was mentioned previously, that you have to, quote unquote, affirm them into the position that is antithetical to their chromosomal true biology. Then we have these bills that are before us about right now, under rule in Michigan, within 24 hours, you are required, if you're a homeless, if you provide services for homeless children, you're required within 24 hours to notify the parents. Well, they want to change that to 72 hours. Well, what does that look like? Well, under Michigan law, after Proposal 3 from a few years ago, what that means is that these children can have abortive services or transition services without parental knowledge. They've got 3 days to get it done, and we can show over and over and over again how it's not necessary that there's even an interview, that they just go ahead and give you permission to get hormonal therapy, cross-sex therapy. It's horrific. And now we have an ethnic intimidation bill, and this made national news the first time it came out. Like it makes civil and criminal penalties associated with using the wrong pronouns. So the substitute said, no, pronouns are not part of it. The next substitute said, yes, they are.
Wow.
It took that correction, and I used the term in air quotes, back out of it. So you have civil and criminal penalties if you're a teacher and you accidentally identify the child incorrectly. So this is the direction that it's going. We need to be fully aware on an international scale, but particularly on a national scale, what this is going to end up looking like. And I just wanted to make sure that the people on this call were fully aware that that's the direction that this is all going. In the United States, again, internationally, beyond Canada, internationally, they're aware that we are harming not only adults, but also children and trying to protect them. But in the United States, half the states are trying to protect your kids, thanks to people like Prisha, and half the states are trying to make it easier to harm our children. And the parents are victims too. Some of the parents are complicit, but most of the parents are just desperately trying to keep their children alive. They see that they're struggling, and they're being told by the experts that this is the solution. And there's nothing in law that requires that the children go to, for example, a psychologist to have an analysis that determines where their body dysmorphia comes from. And it is literally illegal to say you were born in the correct body, you were perfect the way you were born, and let's help you get comfortable with it. And if that doesn't set off alarms with you, then I have questions about your humanity. This is such a huge problem. And we need to speak out across the country. We need legislators to be willing to step up, because it's hard. People, the other side, right, Prisha? The other side is really mean. But in love, we need to respond. If we care about humanity, we need to be able to respond to this, and we need to learn how. But be aware of the legislature. Be aware of the bills that are being introduced, the ones that will help support humanity, and the ones that are in there trying to undermine it. And I specifically wanted to speak to the parents, because I know it is such a heartbreaking situation to be in.
Well, that's a perfect note to end on. We're coming up around 7 o'clock here, and yeah, you hit the nail on the head again, Senator. Because yeah, this is an issue that's not going to go away anytime soon. It's only going to increase in intensity, and yeah, preying upon our most vulnerable young people. It's definitely something that needs to be boldly opposed. So, Rep Click, and then Prisha, appreciate you guys so much, and then yeah, for those who spent the time, this is just the beginning of collaborating and connecting with other folks bold across the nation, because it's an inspiration to hear what you guys did and the work over there. It truly is. I'm on the state line of Indiana, but Ohio is very close to my home right now too. But so grateful for your guys' courageousness there, and then yeah, really sets the tone for the rest of us across the country.
And keep your mind open to banning this for all people. This is something that is harmful whether you're 18, 19, 20, or older, and that's something that if we aim for the moon, we'll land in the stars. If we try to ban it for everyone, we should easily ban this for kids.
Well, Rep Shriver, I don't disagree with the harm that it does to anybody. I just, yeah, we'll chat offline about all this good stuff, and like Rep Click mentioned too, we gotta know as much as we can to speak intelligently about this matter. On the last note, one of my biggest detractors, he was, harping on me about these bills when I introduced them for minors, and he introduced me to a cosmetic surgeon in Indiana who does these surgeries, and he says he doesn't operate on minors just on his own accord, but he agreed with me. And he told me about the cosmeticness of the surgeries and how they don't provide fulfillment. It's just cosmetic surgery. So, yeah, learning as much as we can about this issue. And then yeah, refuting it as necessary. So Prisha and then Gary, thank you guys so much. Great to be able to correspond with you both, and then yeah, let's be in touch as well if you don't mind, so we can make sure that Michigan can follow Ohio's lead.
It's my privilege, and reach out anytime I can help you or for anything you need.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everybody for joining as well. Take care. Have a good night.